Welcome into another exciting edition of Locked On 76ers. Keith Pompey, Marc Farzetta. We're going to do a public service today, Keith. Today's show is a show. It's a podcast, YouTube show, obviously, as well. But really what today is a public service announcement about your friend not your friend personally, everyone's friend, but one guy who really wants Ben Simmons back on the 76ers. We'll let you know where we stand on that topic on this edition of Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we thank you for
Locked On 76ers, your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first bet wins. And yes, once again, thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Keith, I want to go to this. Oftentimes, and I'm sure you can identify with this as a writer as well, you bring up a subject, and people think, oh, well, you want that to happen. I would like to stress, Keith, with great clarity, that at least my standpoint today is a big fat, I'm going to start at the end, a big fat no. I do not want Ben Simmons back on the 76ers. Now, I'll allow the floor is yours now. Where do you stand on Ben Simmons possibly rejoining as a free agent with the 76ers?
That's weird because I really don't have a dog in the race, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
However, I don't think he can come back. Like, yeah. I think that, before we came on the show, I was thinking about certain people who could come back. Like Tobias Harris could possibly come back. Like people destroyed Tobias, right? Tobias didn't have a real good relationship with, Sixers fans, right? There's no way in heck Ben Simmons could come back here. You can't do it. I mean, we're talking about a guy who basically said, I'm not coming to training camp. He ended up coming, right? He participated in 2 practices, and I say that loosely, right? A guy who was kicked out, a guy who was fined, a guy who basically became a distraction because he wanted to get traded. They fined him, all that money. There's no way in heck he could come back. I mean, think about it. When they came back with the Brooklyn Nets, the first game, that was a circus, right? So you mean to tell me after everything, you're going to go out and say, okay, we'll welcome you with open arms. And not only that, it's not that he could come back. Like, let's say if it was LeBron James, if it was like Kevin Durant in his prime, if it was Kobe Bryant, Allen Iverson, stuff like that, guys that you look at it like in their prime, okay, then maybe sometimes you might say, we really don't want to do it, but we'll do it. But when it's a guy who goes from being a max player, a perennial all-star, to now someone who could possibly make a minimum salary, right? Who's going to be a rotation player, a role player, kind of like a specialist because he really can't shoot the ball. Nah, bro, you can't bring that back. You get somebody else. You know what I mean? Seriously, you can't do it. You just can't.
Well, I think you touched on why this has gotten some legs. And like I see reports in Boston that the Celtics could be after him and all that stuff. I think, though, why people bring Ben Simmons' name up still is because, look, I know we did a lot of defending. The Philadelphia fan base did a lot of defending of Ben Simmons to people outside the market. The guy doesn't shoot. Yeah, you're right, doesn't shoot. But there's so many other things well, and I have certainly taken up that argument. But when you talk about him right now, what's alluring about the situation is a position of need. The Sixers need a point guard. They need a facilitator. Ben Simmons certainly did that when he was here, so I understand that. People also look at a minimum salary, like, oh, look, it's not going to cost you a lot of money. You don't have a lot of money. He's not going to cost a lot of money. And then you look at something that's maybe a little bit more personal. Doc Rivers not being here. This starting to transition more into a Maxey-led team. Nick Nurse being more of an open-minded type of coach, that kind of thing. That might – oh, and also, we can't forget this. Ben Simmons, similar to Markelle Fultz, upon leaving Philadelphia, threw respect and love back to Philadelphia in the later years. It wasn't immediate, But Ben Simmons even said in a podcast somewhat recently about how much he loved and respected Philly and didn't really realize what he had when he had it here in Philly. So that was very interesting to me. But with all that being said, no. Still no. And here's why. The Sixers have enough guys that are already dealing with injuries. And you're talking about a guy in Ben Simmons right now who's played in 108 games over the last 3 seasons, Keith. I did the numbers. 36 games a year. Talking about back issues. He's already had foot issues. Like, this guy is no way, shape, or form going to be wanted back in Philadelphia if you're talking about not just a minimum salary guy, but a guy that is also going to give you minimum playing availability. And you already have 2 other guys in Paul George and Joel Embiid that are already giving you that concern. So, again, no. Now, the other part of this. When I start even exploring an argument that I don't agree with, but I'm like, let me look at the other side for a second. You know, Keith, let me consider the other side. Well, you know, he maybe didn't realize what he had when he was here. He's not the same guy. His career didn't go the way it would. Maybe he'd listen a little bit more. Maybe he'd be more into it from an offensive standpoint. Maybe he would shoot a little bit more from the outside. Maybe he'll go about his business differently. And I found myself, Keith, this was the same argument I was telling myself when he was at LSU. That, oh, he'll improve. When he gets to the NBA, that's what he really wants. He doesn't want to just play that 1 year in college and check the box, play for his godfather at LSU. He wants to be in the NBA, so I still take him number 1. I feel like the excuses with some people directed at Ben Simmons just won't stop. So, again, the point of this show today is a PSA. It's a public service announcement that if you have a friend in your group that desperately wants Ben Simmons back on the 76ers or says, well, veteran minimum ain't happening, nor should you want it to happen. I think that kind of puts a bow on it for that one friend in your group.
Yeah, it does. It does. And the thing about it is, we got to look at what the 76ers are doing right now. So you got a guy like, Jabari Walker. You got a guy, Don Barlow. These are 2 6'9" power forwards or forwards because, Walker could play the 3 as well. He's more of a 3-4. So he's a small forward who could play the 4. Those 2 guys are on 2-way contracts, right? So they're basically competing. And when you look at competing to see who can get that last roster spot, right? Or the 76ers could possibly in a little bit, and, I hope they don't do it for him, but Ricky Council IV could probably get waived. He has a 9-guaranteed contract. His contract doesn't become guaranteed fully until January sometime. So it's one of those things where, do you really want to bring in Ben Simmons right now, who's 29 years old? And we look at his stats. This is what he did last year. He in 51 games, he played 51 for both teams, which is a lot for, him comparable to the other seasons. He averaged 5 points, 4.7 rebounds. He shot 52% from the foul line. He shot 72.7% from the free throw line. He didn't attempt a 3 at all, right? He didn't attempt a 3. Heck, he hasn't attempted a 3 since the 2023-24. No, wow. He hasn't attempted a 3 since that's crazy. Since 2022-23. So that's been right. So then you have Jabari Walker. Now, you say the stats are a little bit similar, but he's 22. He'll be 23 on July 30th. In 60 games, he averaged 5.2 points, 3.5 rebounds. He shot 51.5% from the field. He shot 38.9% on 3 this past season, 69% from the foul line. Now, my thing is, you want somebody that's going to stretch the floor, someone that's going to, basically shoot the ball from the perimeter outside. He shot 38.9% last year. He's younger. He's 6 years younger than Ben Simmons. He's a versatile forward. Ben Simmons is a versatile, some people may still call him a point guard, but I think he's more of a point forward now. So with that being said, if I'm the 76ers, it's one of those things where you want to see what Walker has. And if he plays well, you want to give this 23, soon to be 23-year-old, the last roster spot and then give him a multi-year deal, more so than just signing Ben Simmons to a 1-year minimum and possibly losing Walker. I don't think that's a wise investment for the 76ers.
I agree. I want to rehash one thing with you in a second when we come back, and that's to do with Ben Simmons. And the last time I believe he was on the practice court with the 76ers, I want to ask you that question. And then we've talked about Grimes, throughout the week. We've talked about him a lot, and contract and all that stuff. Still waiting on that other offer from another team. Really no advancement, but we'll talk about that in a second. But if it's not Tyrese Maxey, if it's not Quentin Grimes, who will be the guy that is going to be the facilitator on this team? But when we come back, I got a question I have to ask you, Keith. I can't believe I haven't asked you this one yet, because it's one of those things that when I do think about the Ben Simmons era, if you will, coming to an end in Philadelphia, it's an ultimate what if, and it's got nothing to do with him shooting or not shooting. We'll talk about that when we return. Okay. This is Locked On 76ers on the Locked On Sixers YouTube channel. Let me tell you about FanDuel. Summer sports in full swing. Whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, high stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little bit more thrilling with FanDuel? You can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned on the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups. The app keeps it fresh. Was looking good last night during the Phillies for, I believe it was over 7.5 strikeouts for Jesus Luzardo, and then the wheels came off. That was fun. But I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups. Also, the app makes it every game that much more exciting, like a must-watch event, especially when you go through the regular season of baseball, for instance. Whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet right into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. New to FanDuel? Visit FanDuel.com or open the app today, where new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. So I've never asked you this, Keith, and I'm very curious about this, because if you remember, there was the famous video and pictures coming out of Ben Simmons in his last workout before Doc Rivers sent him home, where he's got the jersey. People thought it was a cell phone tucked in his pocket and all that. And he was supposed to address the media after that practice, Keith, if you remember this.
Mm-hmm.
Sure you do. And Doc Rivers, yeah, right. And Doc Rivers said, you know what, get out of here. Just get out of here. I thought Doc Rivers did him the biggest favor on planet Earth by sending him home so he didn't have to address the media. I even thought, wait a minute, what, were they in cahoots? So Ben wouldn't be more of a distraction with whatever he said? What was that moment like? As a beat writer for the 76ers, were you greatly anticipating what Ben was going to say? I assume you would. Or did you just think it was going to be a whole lot of nothing?
No, I was greatly anticipating it. Like, I agree with you. I mean, I disagree with you. I think what happened is the Doc Rivers sending Ben Simmons home benefited the Sixers, because I think Ben was going to get, he was going to say something. He was going to give his side of the story.
Oh, okay,
he was going to give his version. It was probably going to be, you know what, Doc Rivers threw me under the bus, yada, yada.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah,
that's exactly what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would have been that. It would have been to a point, it would have been something like similar to when James Harden said, Daryl Morey is a liar. I repeat, Daryl Morey is a liar. You know what I mean? And then when he had his presser, I mean, let's face it, the guy was trying to get out of here. So
yeah,
he was going to say what he had to say. So yeah, I don't think, I mean, you might have had some reporters who would have drilled them and would have said stuff, but for the most part, everyone knew that this guy was about to talk. Like, it was like, yo, speak up, Ben. The floor is yours.
So do you think okay, so that leads to another question. I always felt like it was almost too easy, because absolutely he would have just, oh man, it would have been a dumpster fire more than it already was with the Sixers. He would have just thrown them under the bus in return and all that. That would have been glorious for both of us. I get the sense that, like, Doc Rivers had an itchy trigger finger Like, just give me a reason to throw you out, Ben, because nobody wants you. Nobody in the Sixers organization wants you to talk to the media after this. Just give me a reason to throw you out. Do you think he went into that practice, Doc Rivers, saying, I know Ben's going to be a malcontent, so if I get an opportunity, I'm tossing him?
I don't think that was it. I mean, it could have been something, and it could have been, but I also think that, you know, we've seen the videos and everything like that. I guess he was just being extremely disruptive. You know, you got new guys on the team. You got some rookies. You know, George Niang was there, and George Niang's looking at him like, yo, what's up with your boy? Like, is he crazy? What's going on? So I just feel like it got to a point where Doc Rivers saw where it was going and just didn't want any parts of it. And then it was one of those things where he said to the guy, like I remember he told him, hey, come on, get in there and do a drill. The guy didn't want to do it. And then when he did it, it was kind of like he was going through the motions. So I feel like if you're a coach, I know this is a players' league, you have to lay down the law. If not, you lose the locker room. And I think Doc probably felt as if that Ben Simmons was testing his authority and he had to do something. Now, you know, it is what it is. And, you know, Doc probably would have been like, yeah, Ben said what he said, but this is my side of the story, what have you. And I'm pretty sure that he was, how should I say it, a little bit leery of what Ben had to say, you know, wondering what he was going to say. But at the same time, I think that Ben just came to practice with scorched earth mode and burn everything up. And Doc had to do something with it.
I'll never forget that as long as I live. Now, see here, I think we're doing a public service announcement. And then who do I see here in the chat? Oh, there we go. Oz Ware. Only casuals wouldn't bring back Ben. Like, I literally think this is just a crazy thought. Because, like, we watch the NBA. Obviously, you covered the Sixers, so you're far from a casual, Keith, as am I. You cover the team, though. For me, I don't see where there's a positive in all of this yet. So, Osware is the friend in your group that I'm talking about here. Hey, look, you're entitled to your opinion. You do you. But I just think that is absolute bonkers as a certified non-casual. Love when people just throw that term out there. You know, here we go. He goes. They go on to say, Osware also goes on to say, I have no problem with bringing Ben back at this point. We don't need him to score, just facilitate. That's another injury-prone guy.
It's hard to facilitate. See, here's the one thing that we got to realize. So when Ben Simmons was playing at a high level, when he was, you know, when the Sixers gave him that money, that extension, you know, after he got his first, what was it, his first all-star berth, right? This and that, after Rookie of the Year, we have to understand something. He didn't have back issues at the time. So right then, he was a locomotive. He was 6'10", 240, 250. He was one of the fastest guys in the league. He could do a lot of different things. Well, then all of a sudden you get a bad back. So it comes down to, well, what type of work are you putting in the offseason? Oh, you're not putting anything in? So you mean to tell me you lost some speed, but you don't have a jumper? Wow. Okay. And then that's the problem. So you're talking about being a facilitator. Well, if you're a facilitator and you can't blow by people like you used to, and there you have no outside shooting threat, what we're going to see is what we saw at times when he was a Sixer. Everyone's backing up. So who are you going to facilitate to? You know what I mean? It's kind of like, you know, everybody's backing up. And if you can't blow by people, you may not be able to get to the rim. Mm-hmm. So right now you look at them, and it's also one of those things where we all know that you want to go with the starters in the fourth quarter. But when he was in Brooklyn, early on in Brooklyn, people forget he would get benched in clutch situations. Like he wouldn't even see the floor. And it got to a point where he wasn't even a starter anymore. He became a part-time starter on the Brooklyn Nets team that was struggling. Mm-hmm. So to me, yes, you can say casual fans, you can say this, you can say that. But if he doesn't have any threat of scoring the ball, what are you going to do? Like you can't.
It was my problem. It was my problem when he was here. It was my problem when he was here. So if you're telling me he can't keep up because of his back and play at a consistent high level, then obviously I don't want him here. But also you're telling me you're going to get diminishing returns on even a veteran minimum here in Philadelphia, and he can't drive to the basket like he used to. He can't keep that up, and he's already not shooting from the outside. Then what are we doing here? And even then, when he was here, I screamed about the spacing, like a lot of people did, Keith. Because if a defender just believes that you have to defend an outside shot from Ben Simmons, that's going to bring him in closer, opening up space, and also giving him the ability to maybe beat you off the dribble, which obviously he could do. So now if you're talking about a guy at 29 years old with a bad back, not even worth the dice roll as far as I'm concerned, Keith. When we come back, I do want to hit you with this, because if it's not going to be Ben Simmons, which we're both saying it shouldn't be, and we'll take some comments as well. I see one comment here I want to get to from Reggie. But when it comes to the 76ers team, is it just absolute that Tyrese Maxey is going to be your primary ball handler, or are they going to start to transition a little bit more to maybe using somebody else as a point forward and facilitator? We'll talk about that when we return. This is Locked On 76ers. It's Locked On 76ers YouTube channel. Like and subscribe. Back after this quick blink of a break. All right, Ben Simmons. Big topic today. A lot of reports out there, mostly circling around Boston, how the Celtics supposedly have interest. They would welcome Ben to Boston. How ironic would that be? Not so much here in Philadelphia, but if it's not going to be, let's say, a Ben Simmons or whatever in free agency, if Quentin Grimes re-signs, would you look at him, Keith, as more of a point guard? Would you look at Tyrese Maxey as that point guard role? Who would be the facilitator in this offense?
You know, it's weird because I think I don't look at Quentin Grimes as the one. I mean, I think in today's era, all three of them, you know, I'm not including VJ Edgecombe. When I say all three of them, I'm talking about Tyrese Maxey, Quentin Grimes, Jared McCain can all handle the rock, right? Okay. And they can do certain things, but they're not point guards. Like some people might say in the modern day, you don't have to have like the John Stockton, you don't have to have the Isaiah Thomas, which is true. But at the same time, you know, you do need somebody who's going to make a great shot. I mean, a good shot into a great shot. You know what I mean? Like set a player up, get them, make sure they get great shots. I don't think the Sixers have that. You know, the one person that I think if I had to have someone have a ball in their hands, and I still am not 100% sold on him, but I do go back to when Jared McCain played against Cleveland that one night, and he had like 34 points, but he also had 10 assists. You know, I also remember there was a couple games where, you know, there was another game against Memphis at Memphis. It was a close loss that they lost at Memphis in November, where he had 20 points. He had 5 assists, right? Now, you know, some people might say, you know, 5 assists, what's that? But to me, it was like he kept everyone involved. The ball kept finding him, but he kept everyone involved. I do think that if he's on the floor with Tyrese Maxey, that there's going to come a point where he's going to, you know, set Tyrese up. He's going to set other teammates up, and he's going to move without the ball. Aside from that, I think that a guy who can play point forward and who can be a facilitator, but he has to be healthy, is Paul George at this stage of his career. Like, he's a guy that if he's healthy, he's getting older though, but if he's healthy, he could be a guy that can assume some of those responsibilities. Because as we know, when he was playing well, that's what he was doing. He was setting teammates up. But if you ask me of the three, now again, if you're going to start out, you're going to have the ball in Max's hand. But if you're asking somebody to step up and be a facilitator, and I'm basing it off of this roster, and we're not talking about Trendon Watford. I know everybody talks about him, but I'm just talking about the guards and the wings and stuff like that. it's probably going to have to be McCain. And, because there's not a lot to choose from. Unfortunately, It's not.
Fourth quarter, close game, final 5 minutes. Who's running the show?
Well, you got to give the ball to Maxey.
Right.
I mean, like, who else do you have?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you might say, okay, PG, okay, but who else you going to give it to? Maybe Paul George or something like that. But you know what? Here's the thing: if it's the fourth quarter, 5 minutes left in the game, if Paul George is healthy, I think I'm giving it to him, not Max.
All right.
And the reason why I'm saying that is because when it comes down to Paul, when it comes down in the fourth quarter, I'm seeing teams blitzing the heck out of Max, trying to disrupt him. I think that if Paul George is healthy and he's heady, I'm going with the experience, right? I'm going with it like, okay, what do you see out there? How are you going to get us out of different situations? You're going to swing the ball to Maxey. You're going to find Maxey cutting somewhere. You're going to see you're going to see Embiid in a mismatch. That's what I'm relying on at that point. But again, he has to be healthy now. He has to be healthy.
Now here's the question from Reggie. I agree. Reggie M. Mark, Keith, Ben might not get a job in the league. What does he do after that? G League, overseas, or retirement? Do you think he's eyeing that at all?
No, I think Ben Simmons is going to get a job in the league.
So
man, think about it. It's going to be one of those teams where how it is always that one person, or even like the pretty girl or something like that. And I hate to use this analogy, but she's like smoking hot. She's batshit crazy, right? But she's smoking hot. And there's always that one dude that's like, yo, man, I'm going to give her a try. I'm going to see.
Shoot your shot, man.
I'm going to see, or whatever. Like,
shoot
it's just kind of like, you got to shoot your shot. Well, what you mean? Okay, like, she's no longer high maintenance. I can take her to Red Lobster instead of taking her to Del Frisco's. Oh, I'm gonna give her a chance. I shouldn't have used that analogy.
No, it's the perfect. It's the perfect analogy.
But at the same time, that's what it is, man. Like, so there's going to be teams like the Boston Celtics. They're saying, okay, we do not have to give him $10 million. We do not have to give him, we would not have to give him a lot of money, right? But at the same time, can we bring him in as a minimum and see how he is? And if it doesn't work out, we'll cut him. Yeah. But aside from that, if it doesn't work if it doesn't work in the NBA, I could see Ben go overseas. I will not see him playing in the G League. I could see him going to Australia, maybe going to the Spanish League, going somewhere where he can make money.
Gotcha. Anthony Washington saying Brogdon. You mentioned Malcolm Brogdon yesterday as a possible future 76er. Still would like to see that happen?
You know what? Here's the thing. I think that at this particular time, they have too many point guards. So I think there's other positions of need. But I think that if we're talking about a straight up point guard, I like Brogdon. I mean, I do, because of, just someone getting everybody in their positions. But right now, I think you already have too many people. You already have too many people. The funny thing is the point guard that a lot of people like is Josh Giddey, but he's a restricted free agent, and this situation is similar to Quentin Grimes, whereas like they're both okay. This is what I want. Well, this is what we're willing to offer you. Well, this is what I want. So everybody's waiting to see what happens with that situation. But I do love Josh Giddey.
When it comes to Quentin Grimes, assuming no movement there, same old, just waiting for that offer.
It's the same. I mean, like, here's the problem. Like, I mean, Daryl Morey, when Daryl Morey had that press conference in Vegas, and he said, we are committed to him, we're doing this and that, I took that as him, a statement to other teams like, throw your money, tie your money up if you want to, because we're going to match it. No one's going to, like, it's going to be a standstill. There's nowhere like right now. Now here, my only thing that if I'm the Sixers, I would be fearful to whereas they didn't do anything. He ends up taking that $8.7 million for 1 year. And then all of a sudden he becomes a unrestricted free agent next year. And if that happens, what if you lose him and you get nothing, right? Mm-hmm. And that could happen. Like if the money is dried up and he says, okay, I'm gonna bet on myself, and I'll become, I take the qualifying offer, take the 8.7, and then all of a sudden I can get whatever I want next year. Where I think, new money, like each year the cap goes up. I think the TV money comes in, next season. Like if I'm the Sixers, I don't want that. Like I really want to try to get this thing settled rather sooner than later.
There you go. All right. Arthur's saying he'd welcome back Ben. Okay, there you go. Osware, I got to say, this is funny. Danny Granger is more in the tank at this point than Paul George, which is just a funny reference. Ace Boogie, I'm here for the Matt Geiger references. All right. I saw an Andre Iguodala thing as well. That'd be absolutely amazing. Lou Williams, we got Lou Williams back in the fold. Thanks, everybody. Everyone in the chat, thank you for being part of the live show today. We'll be back with you guys tomorrow for our Friday edition of Locked On 76ers, so we look forward to that. In the meantime, make sure you guys are following Keith Pompey and reading all his articles on Inquirer.com. He does have a story today you guys should still check out regarding Ben Simmons to get into that conversation. Also, I'll be with you guys to this afternoon at noon, as a matter of fact, for your Locked On Eagles show, Eagles Squad show. So make sure you guys check that out as well. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll be back with you guys tomorrow. And thank you once again for making Locked On 76ers your first listen today. For your second listen, make sure you go find Locked On NBA Podcast wherever you have your podcast or watch your YouTube. There's no offseason there. Doug, Matt, and Hayes keep you up to date on contract negotiations, rumors, and everything you need to know to be the most informed NBA fan. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Hit like and subscribe on Locked On 76ers. Back with you guys tomorrow. For Keith Pompey, I'm Marc Farzetta. We'll see you guys then. Bye.